Good morning, First Unitarian.
Good morning. Good morning.
I love that call and response. That's what typically happens in the Black church. Thank you for welcoming me into this sacred space with you all. I'm honored to be here, and I'm grateful to Mickey Morissette and Jullan for extending this invitation. I also want to acknowledge a special guest who's here with me today, and that's Leslie Redmond. Can you stand up, Leslie? Leslie is one of my former law students from when I taught at the University of St. Thomas Law School. She's also the past president of the Minneapolis NAACP. And one other interesting fact about Leslie is that she is a native of Washington, D.C. And so you all know what's happening there right now, and her family and her community is grappling with all of those issues. And so send Leslie positive energy and prayers as she navigates this situation, and just knowing that you're not alone. We're here for you as your Minneapolis community. So I've been asked to reflect on what it means to become conscious consumers, especially in a time when so many of us are navigating difficult decisions about where we spend our money, who we support, and what we stand for. It's not always easy to know what to do, but I believe we are being called, not just politically, but spiritually, to ask, what are we really paying for? And who is paying the price? We live in an era of choice. There's a product for everything, an app for everything, a sale, for everything. But underneath all the convenience is a system that too often asks us to trade our values for speed, to trade our conscience for comfort, to trade our community's well-being for a cheaper checkout total. And the hardest part, it's not always clear which corporations are helping and which ones are hurting. Many companies present a progressive front. They say the right things, they post the right hashtags, they profit from diversity while quietly dismantling the very commitments they once made. In this environment, it's easy to feel disillusioned, but that's actually where our power comes in. Earlier this year, I was one of 3 local organizers who launched a national boycott against Target. Yes, that Target. The one headquartered right here in Minneapolis. Why? Because a company that once claimed to stand for racial justice after the Minneapolis police murder of George Floyd made a quiet but powerful pivot. It rolled back its DEI efforts, backed away from public commitments, and aligned itself with forces that are actively dismantling the very freedoms and protections our communities have fought so hard to secure. Rather than stand up for those values, Target took the safe route, the profitable route, and we knew we couldn't stay silent. In the midst of feeling disempowered under the renewed authoritarianism of the current administration, where we've seen the erosion of DEI, which is diversity, equity, and inclusion, immigrant rights, trans rights, and even the teaching of Black history, we found our voice through economic resistance. We voted with our dollars. We spoke truth to power, and we sparked a fire. That one boycott inspired others, such as the Tesla takedown, the 40-day Target fast, the Latino freeze, the economic blackouts led by the People's Union USA. These were not isolated events. They were spiritual uprisings disguised as consumer actions. They reminded us that even in the face of perceived political powerlessness, we still have agency. This isn't new. We stand on the shoulders of economic disruptors. Let's go back to 1955, to the Montgomery bus boycott. On December 1st, 1955, Rosa Parks boarded a segregated bus in Montgomery, Alabama, and took her place in the so-called colored section at the back of the bus, which is the only place that Black people were allowed to sit. But when a white man approached her and demanded her seat, she refused to give up her seat. Let us remember, Rosa was already sitting at the back of the bus. Her resistance was not about position, it was about principle. Her arrest actually placed her life in danger, but it also awakened a movement. Black women mobilized churches, organized carpools, printed leaflets, and sustained the Montgomery bus boycott for 381 days. This also led to the emergence of a leader that we now know as the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., who was just 26 at this time. That boycott wasn't just about buses. It was about dignity, justice, and collective power. And the Black residents of Montgomery, many of them domestic workers, maids, porters, and teachers, collectively decided to walk, again, for 381 days. They walked. They sacrificed convenience. They shared rides. They endured threats and violence. And they forced a massive transportation company and an entire nation to reckon with its injustice. It was a collective sermon, preached not in a church, but in the streets, on tired feet and in quiet refusal. And today, when we engage in boycotts and consumer resistance, we carry forward that same spirit. We honor their sacrifice by refusing to spend our dollars in places that betray our communities. Boycotts aren't about perfection. They're about alignment. When we refuse to spend our money with companies that cause harm, we're not just making a political statement, we're engaging in a spiritual practice. We're saying, I see what's happening. I will not pretend not to know. I will not help you profit from oppression. Boycotting is hard. It often means letting go of convenience, familiarity, and even nostalgia. But there is power in that sacrifice, because what we refuse to buy reveals what we refuse to normalize. Now let me be clear. This isn't about shaming people for where they shop. We're all navigating complex systems, especially those of us caring for families, living in under-resourced areas, or doing our best with limited options. This is not about individual purity. It's about collective power. One voice may not feel like much, but when voices become a chorus, and that chorus becomes a movement, the system has no choice but to respond. That is the deeper truth behind boycotts. They're not about rejection, they're about reimagining. They remind us that we are not as powerless as we have been made to feel. Because in a culture built on convenience, choosing justice is radical. But that's how every movement begins, with someone, somewhere, daring to say, not with my dollars, not in my name. Thank you.